Welcome to the Deep Dive. I'm your host, and today...
And I'm the resident Gestalt psychologist here, ready to hopefully help us make sense of the invisible structures in our minds.
Right, exactly. And today we are jumping into something that I think is, well, it's universally relatable. So imagine waking up.
Okay.
Not the physical act of like opening your eyes, but that split second before...
Right, before you're even fully conscious.
Yes. Your consciousness hasn't even fully returned to your body yet. You haven't stretched, you haven't felt the temperature of the room, but your mind is already reaching outward. It's this automatic silent reflex. You grab your phone, and before your vision even clears, your awareness is scanning. You know, you're looking at faces, achievements, curated lifestyles.
It's the morning routine for basically all of us.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Maybe you see that someone you knew in college just posted about their promotion, or, I don't know, someone is crushing a 5 a.m. ice bath routine while you are literally still under the covers.
Right.
And you do this not out of genuine curiosity, but to answer one quiet, compulsive question. Where do you stand?
It really is a profound morning ritual. And, you know, the instinct usually is to judge ourselves incredibly harshly for it. We call it vanity. We call it petty ambition.
Oh, for sure. We feel guilty about it.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But if we look at the stack of sources you send over for this deep dive, like the research papers on Gestalt psychology, the articles on social dynamics, and your own incredibly detailed notes, something much deeper is happening.
Yeah.
We aren't comparing because we're inherently insecure. We do it because comparison has become the invisible architecture of how we locate ourselves in reality.
Okay, let's unpack this because you sent us a gold mine of material back, and
Yeah.
our mission today is to tear down that invisible architecture.
Let's do it.
We want to take these sources and step way beyond the cliche advice of, just don't compare yourself. We are treating this as a fundamental crisis of perception.
And the Gestalt psychology perspective in your sources frames this perfectly. That morning scan. It isn't a personality defect.
Right.
It's the silent grammar of selfhood in a social field. Comparison actively structures your perception before you even have a chance to experience the physical world on your own terms.
See, I really want to understand the mechanics of that distortion because it feels so natural to, I don't know, take the temperature of the room. We're social creatures.
Of course we are.
So how does looking around at others cross the line into actually distorting my own reality?
Well, let's use a metaphor to visualize the psychology here.
Eh?
Imagine you carry a mirror with you everywhere you go,
Okay.
but you never hold it up to see your own face. You hold it right in front of your eyes, angled outward.
Oh, wow. Angled outward.
Right, so you only ever see the world reflected as it relates to your position.
So if I'm looking at a tree, I'm not actually experiencing the tree. I'm calculating if it's taller than me.
Exactly.
Yeah.
You hear a friend talking about a painful experience, and instead of just listening to their pain, you're subconsciously measuring the emotional weight of their story against your own struggles. Every single glance at another human being is a calibration of your own adequacy.
That is so dark. The people around me basically stop being humans and become measuring sticks. They're just rulers.
Yeah, and there is a deep historical foundation for this dynamic. Leon Festinger established social comparison theory back in 1954.
Right. 1954.
He argued that humans have this drive to evaluate their own abilities by comparing themselves to others, particularly when objective standards don't exist.
Because if there's no ruler, we use our neighbor.
Precisely. But what modern psychology reveals, and what your notes really highlight, is that this drive doesn't just inform your self-perception over time. It constructs it.
It constructs it.
Yes. Your identity becomes nothing more than a coordinate on a map drawn by other people's lives.
Okay, wait. Let me push back on the idea that this is inherently destructive, though.
Sure.
Because think about it. If I look at a photograph of a massive mountain, just rock and snow, I have absolutely no idea if it's 50 feet tall or 5,000 feet tall.
Right. There's no context.
Exactly. I instinctively look for a hiker or like a tiny cabin at the base just to understand the scale. So don't we need those reference points? Don't I need other people to understand my own scale in the world?
That is a great point. And if we take that mountain analogy a step further, it actually reveals the exact danger of the angled mirror.
How so?
Well, we absolutely look for the hiker to understand the mountain. The problem arises when we apply that mechanical scaling to the human psyche.
Oh, I see.
When we insert other people into our mental landscape strictly to scale ourselves, We strip those people of their complexity. They cease to be breathing humans with inner lives.
Right, or just a prop in my photo.
Exactly. We reduce them to tools for our own orientation. And worse, we surrender the autonomy of our own perception.
I'm surrendering the autonomy of my perception. That means, someone else is driving my reality at that point.
Yes.
If I let the achievements of the hiker dictate how I feel about the mountain, I'm not even seeing the mountain anymore.
And this is where Gestalt psychology becomes incredibly illuminating. A core tenet of Gestalt is that the mind never perceives isolated elements. It perceives wholes, organized into figure and ground.
Okay, figure and ground. Break that down for us.
The figure is whatever holds your focus, and the ground is the background it emerges from. The self isn't a static object. You are a dynamic figure constantly emerging from a field of relations.
Got it. So if I am the figure and my life is the ground weight, comparison must force something else into the foreground, right?
Yes, exactly. Comparison acts as a tyrannical organizing principle. Suddenly, my coworker's promotion or my neighbor's vacation becomes the vivid, undeniable figure.
And what happens to me?
Your own internal state, your actual lived experience in that exact moment is pushed into the blurry, irrelevant background.
Man, I think everyone listening can relate to this on a visceral level. Like you finish a project and you feel a genuine burst of pride.
Right.
But then you open an app or you hear what someone else did that week, and your joy is completely colonized.
It is.
It morphs into, well, it's less than what they did. Or even with grief.
Yeah, especially with grief.
Right. You feel sad, but then you think others have it much worse. So your grief feels completely illegitimate. Even the desire to just sit in silence stops feeling like contemplation and starts feeling like a failure to perform.
Yeah, you become an exile from your own skin. You're reduced to being a spectator of your own existence, just watching yourself from the imagined, judging vantage point of the collective.
Which makes me wonder if we ever experience anything directly anymore. Like, have we ever had unmediated contact with the world?
We have. Think about a child learning to walk.
Okay.
When a toddler is learning to stand, she doesn't look around at the other toddlers in the room and think, is my gait as smooth as his? Am I hitting this developmental milestone fast enough?
No, she's just trying not to fall over.
Exactly. She is guided purely by proprioception.
Proprioception, meaning like the internal feedback loop of her nervous system.
Yes. She feels gravity. She feels balance. Her figure emerges against the physical ground of space, not against the performance of her peers.
Oh, wow.
There is absolute purity in that contact. It is exploration completely free of judgment. But as we develop into adults, we trade that internal proprioception for social optics.
We trade interoception-like, feeling from the inside, for exteroception.
Beautifully put. We stop feeling the floor beneath our own feet, and we just stare at where everyone else is standing.
That's tragic, honestly.
It is. And this brings in another Gestalt concept from your research. It's called the law of pregnance.
The law of pregnance, okay.
This is the mind's inherent tendency to organize stimuli into the simplest, most stable, most coherent whole possible.
Right, because the human psyche hates fragmentation.
It hates it. It desperately wants to close the loop and create a complete, meaningful narrative.
Yeah.
But the psychological danger of comparison is that it introduces what Gestalt calls false figures.
Okay, so if a figure is the focal point of my reality, a false figure would be an illusion that my brain is treating as real.
Exactly. When you compare yourself, you aren't reacting to your own actual hunger, your own fatigue, or your authentic desires.
What am I reacting to?
You are reacting to the heavily curated image of another person, filtered through your own fear or shame.
Wow.
That idealized phantom image becomes the vivid figure in your mind. And because your mind obeys the law of pregnance, it desperately wants to close the loop. It tries to complete this false figure.
It's like having dozens of open tabs in your browser, but they are all pages someone else opened.
Yes.
You are exhausted because you are pouring all your cognitive energy into finishing someone else's sentence. You're trying to close a loop of Gestalt that was never yours to begin with.
And trying to finish someone else's sentence leaves you with perpetual unfinished business. The Gestalt can never close because the idealized other person isn't real, they are a projection.
So it's just endless.
Endless. And this drains the vitality from your present moment. Society often mistakes this tension for motivation, though.
Right. We tell ourselves, if I stop comparing, I'll lose my drive. I'll just get lazy.
But genuine drive comes from your own internal unfinished business, your own unmet needs. Comparison hijacks your natural self-regulation and points it outward at a mirage.
If this all comes down to perception and closing loops, attention must be the currency we are spending.
Attention is the shaping force of reality. In Gestalt, attention isn't a passive camera. Where you place your attention literally determines what becomes the figure and what fades into the ground.
Okay.
In a healthy field, attention flows organically to what is urgent or meaningful to your survival and growth.
But under the influence of comparison, attention isn't organic, it's compulsive.
Right.
Like, I'm not looking at my phone because I genuinely care what a high school acquaintance had for lunch. I'm doing it to audit my own status.
It becomes a state of constant surveillance. You scan the horizon for threats like, are they surpassing me? Or for opportunities to mimic someone else's success.
Everything turns into a metric.
Life fractures into a landscape of metrics: followers, salaries, relationship milestones.
So what happens on that morning when you wake up and you choose not to scan? Like, you leave the phone on the nightstand. You don't audit your place in the hierarchy. You just breathe and let the weight of your body sink into the mattress. What is actually happening in the brain?
Well, the initial reaction is rarely peace.
Really? I would think it's relaxing.
You'd think so, but no. When you drop the measuring stick, the immediate experience is silence, which the brain interprets as chaos. Existential philosophers call this the vertigo of freedom.
The vertigo of freedom. Why does the brain panic just because it's quiet?
Because the human brain is fundamentally a prediction engine. It relies on reference points to minimize uncertainty.
And we've been using other people as our reference points.
Exactly. For years, you have used social comparison as your primary psychological GPS. The brain expects that data to know how to feel and how to behave.
Oh, wow.
So when you suddenly remove the social metrics, the prediction engine fails. It throws an error code. Cortisol spikes.
Because it doesn't know what to do.
Right. The mind, used to triangulating its position based on others, asks a terrifying question. Who am I, if not in relation to them?
It's a perceptual freefall. You've been navigating by someone else's constellations, and suddenly it's daytime, the stars are gone, and you have no idea which way is north.
That's a perfect way to describe it.
Yeah.
But if you can sit with that cognitive dissonance without picking the measuring stick back up, the perceptual field begins to settle.
Okay.
The noise of external reference sinks, and as the field clears, your authentic needs finally rise to the surface.
Because they aren't being shouted down by the false figures anymore.
Exactly.
So if I feel tired, I actually feel my own fatigue instead of forcing myself to work because someone on the internet is doing a hustle grind set challenge.
Gestalt psychology calls this moment Einsicht, or insight. And it's not an intellectual realization, it is a perceptual reconfiguration.
The false figure collapses.
Yes. You might realize, oh, I wasn't actually jealous of my friend's startup. I was grieving the fact that I abandoned my own creative hobbies.
Wow, you stop solving the wrong problems.
You start reading your own diagnostic chart.
That makes a lot of sense.
And this shift triggers a concept called isomorphism.
Isomorphism, let's dig into that.
It's the principle that how you perceive the outer world directly mirrors the organization of your inner mind.
Okay, so the inside reflects the outside.
Right. If your inner world is fragmented by the surveillance of comparison, the outer world looks like a scarce, highly competitive battlefield.
Everyone is a rival.
But if your inner field moves toward integration, the outer world shifts. It reveals abundance and interconnectedness.
This feels like we are crossing a bridge from psychology straight into philosophy. Facing this vertigo, dropping the false figures, it sounds exactly like what the existentialists were talking about.
It really does. And your sources draw a direct line between Gestalt and existentialism, specifically citing Martin Heidegger.
Heidegger.
Heidegger wrote about the concept of thrownness, Geworfenheit.
Thrownness, meaning we are just thrown into the world.
Pretty much. It means you are dropped into a specific era, a specific culture, and a set of norms without your consent.
Right.
You didn't choose to be born into the 21st century digital panopticon. You were thrown into it.
Yeah, none of us asked for smartphones to run our lives.
Exactly. The existential challenge is figuring out how to achieve authenticity within that arbitrary setup. Søren Kierkegaard similarly warned about losing oneself in the crowd.
Right.
Gestalt psychology takes these massive philosophical concepts and grounds them in daily practice. Authenticity becomes perceptual fidelity.
Perceptual fidelity, I like that phrase. Being faithful to the raw data of your own senses. Seeing what is actually there without instantly importing judgments from the crowd.
It is the courage to feel your own longing without translating it into envy. To stand in your own confusion without rushing to compare it to someone else's apparent clarity.
I have to bring up the shadow side of this, though.
Okay, let's hear.
Because if you drop the measuring stick and commit to perceptual fidelity, you lose a certain kind of belonging. Think about how we bond. Oh, absolutely.
Gossip, complaining about status, mutual anxieties about where we stand, these are social clues. If you step out of that dynamic, you leave the tribe of the anxious.
Right.
You no longer speak the language of positioning. Doesn't that make you incredibly lonely?
It is a profound social risk. Initially, it does feel alienating.
Yeah.
You no longer fit neatly into the social puzzle because you refuse to be a static piece. But that loneliness eventually transforms into the spaciousness of solitude.
Solitude versus loneliness.
Exactly. Only in that uncrowded space can your true figure emerge without distortion.
And when that happens, how does it change the way we see the people we used to compare ourselves to? Like, if they aren't measuring sticks anymore, what are they?
You stop seeing them as mirrors or rivals. You start seeing them as worlds.
As worlds.
They become whole, incredibly complex beings wrestling with their own ghosts and navigating their own unfinished gestalts.
Wow.
Empathy returns not as pity, but as recognition. You realize you cannot truly see another human being while using them to measure yourself. Right, because the second they become a reference point, they become a tool.
Yes, you lose their humanity and you lose your own.
So the staggering irony of everything in these sources is that we use comparison because we are desperately trying to find ourselves. We want to know our scale, but the very act of comparison makes us disappear. Our essence was never out there in the curated lives of others.
No, it wasn't.
It was in the rhythm of our own breath and the tremor in our own hands. We just couldn't see the mountain because we were obsessed with the hiker.
The fundamental flaw in the architecture of comparison is the assumption that you are supposed to be a finished, polished figure.
Like we're supposed to arrive at some final destination.
Right.
Yeah.
It assumes a final state of perfection you are failing to reach. But you are a dynamic process. You are a living field reshaped by contact with the world.
I love that.
Comparison tries to freeze you into a static snapshot. But life is not a photograph. It's a river.
Yeah.
You are a gestalt in progress. You are a question walking.
A question walking. That's powerful. And as we wrap up this deep dive, I want to leave you, the listener, with one final thought to mull over. We've spent this time exploring your notes on freeing yourself from being a completed snapshot. We've talked about lowering the angled mirror.
Right.
But what about the people around you? If you are a question walking, so are they. Tomorrow, when you talk to your partner, your coworker, or a complete stranger, what would happen if you consciously refused to measure them?
Just let them be.
Exactly. What if, just for a moment, you allowed them the profound grace to be completely unfinished, right alongside you?